So there's a number of reasons why you would want to do a renovation over new construction. You know, the first and most obvious is cost. Potentially can cost significantly less to do a renovation because you don't have to do land acquisition, you don't have to build the exterior. But more importantly, I think one of them is time. Be able to just come in and renovate the areas within the space that you're interested in. And depending on how much renovation you're going to be doing, that could take a couple years. New construction is usually going to take about 5 years. There's also reasons you'd want to do it just from a preservation standpoint. So if you're in an area where the building has maybe historical significance or some architectural history to it, that's a good reason to want to stay and preserve that building. Some neighborhoods, there's just a type of architecture that's around, and just repurposing that building keeps that architecture intact, and it also sometimes prevents that urban sprawl that some cities are trying to get rid of. From a sustainability standpoint, it often seems like renovation's definitely the way to go because you're using less new resources, but in truth, you know, you can build these zero carbon buildings, you can use solar, wind, geothermal. You can do all of these things with new building and new technology that would be really difficult to implement in a renovation. If you're really interested in long-term sustainability, then new construction is the way to go. There's a number of challenges that come with renovations as well. So one, if it's a multi-story building, maybe a high-rise, there's usually some height restrictions floor to floor. And in modern design, that floor to floor height is usually a lot higher, and that affects technology. It's more difficult to distribute audio. So it's more speakers, it's more TVs, more cameras. So from an audiovisual side, just renovation in a smaller ceiling is just more AV. That's the only way to combat it. Depending on how old that building is, it could have wood floors. And you know, floor to floor acoustics is going to be very important. You'd have to add some type of resilient flooring. Most of the time, older buildings have poor facades, poor glass. So you have to really take into consideration that outside noise is coming into the space. From a telecom perspective, it seems like it's great because you already have the shafts for all the telecom. But unfortunately, telecom rooms in the past, they were a lot smaller. They had a lot less equipment in them. So rooms need enlarged. You're gonna need more power, and you're gonna need more cooling just because there's significantly more active network components inside those spaces. New construction, you can build everything to your whims, right? As long as you have the budget. You have the capabilities to design spaces to the sizes, to the ceiling heights, to the functionality, mixes, and flexibility that required. You can just make those spaces much more inclusive. A lot of the old buildings, they were never envisioned, intended to have any type of distance component. So now with offices being hybrid, universities offering hybrid courses, remote learners, none of that was actually considered in the original architecture, so getting the proper camera angles becomes more difficult. Having equitable distribution of viewing and audio is very important. If we want to talk about some of the ways around this, some of the ways to mitigate some of these risks, it's to bring that technology consultant in extremely early. It's really important to know from a base building standpoint how much additional scope is going to be required.